Iron Reese. The talk is still real. We still on the corner. We can touch on some topics.
SKN, we got topics. Let's have a discussion. The people got questions. The people want answers. Yeah, we got topics. Let's have a discussion. The people got questions. The people want answers. Yeah, it's real talking. It's real talk. It's real talking. It's real talk. It's real talking. Real talk. It's real talking. Real talk. Yeah.
Iron Reese. The talk is still real. We still on the corner. We can touch on some topics.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say to the residents of Hamilton, the residents of Happy Hill, Government Road, Lower Stony Grove, Prince William Street, Cedar Trees, Bath Road, Law Street, Main Street, Craddock Road, Ramsbury. It's all about you tonight and going forward. So I say a special good evening to you. I will, though, recognize a few other persons from across Nevis who would have come here tonight to witness this launch. And to those who are viewing via the World Wide Web, we say thank you so much for tuning in.
Reese.
Thank you so much for tuning in, boy. Indeed. Indeed.
It's been rough.
Hey, you know, we got sometimes,
Yes.
You know, we got sometimes,
Yes.
Technology.
Technology.
You know, anything that can go wrong sometimes does go wrong, but we were able to work it out.
Murphy's Law.
And we are here.
Correct.
With us being here, we a little late, but you know what I say? I would say something better late than never.
Better late than never. And definitely tonight, better late than never.
Definitely, man, definitely.
So we had a power outage.
Definitely.
I don't know what's the coincidence, but we had a power outage. I don't know if the young lady is so electrifying that she's causing power surge, but we had a power outage.
Right? It's only one way to find out, right?
Yeah.
How electrifying she is.
Yeah, we're gonna have to ask questions.
Let's introduce tonight's guest, man. Tonight we're gonna be speaking with Jaedee Caines.
Yes.
Newly launched candidate for the Nevis Reformation Party. She was launched on Saturday.
Okay.
And her first order of business was to come and sit down with the guys on the corner.
That's real.
When you launch and you come and sit down with the guys on the corner for your first interview after being launched, that speaks volumes.
Yeah.
And with that being
it's an open platform.
Oh, without a doubt. So. And to everybody that we invite, you have the right to say yes or no. And she said yes.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get better than that, right? But with that being said, man, without further ado, let's introduce Jaedee Caines to everybody. Let everybody see Jaedee Caines and let's kick it off.
Jaedee, how are you?
Hi, I am well. Thank you guys so much for having me. I had to laugh a bit there. The comment about the electricity. It seems to be, I don't know, this seems to be my luck. I hope that on election day, suddenly we don't have a power outage that causes everything to go wrong. But thank you guys for having me. It's definitely a pleasure, and I want to commend you guys from the start for the work that you've been doing through this platform. Hearing a lot of good things about you, and I tune in occasionally, and I like the vibe, I like the setting, very laid back. So kudos to you guys, and thank you for having me.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you for accepting. Reese, I'm gonna let you start it off and get Jaedee going.
Well, definitely, right? We've seen Jaedee around the place. Some would have known Jaedee for some time, but for those who don't know Jaedee, let us know who you are. Give us a little bit of upbringing, a little bit of your backstory. Let us know who is Jaedee Caines.
Sure. So good evening to everyone once again. I am Jaedee Caines, the recently launched candidate for the Nevis Reformation Party in the constituency of Nevis 1, also known as Caines. I was born in Bath Village, or I spent the first 10 years of my life in Bath Village on Bath Road. Then I moved to Braziers Estate, which is located on the outskirts of Government Road and Hamilton. And I attended the Charlestown Primary School, Smith Preschool, Charlestown Primary School, Charlestown Secondary School, Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, University of the Virgin Islands. I have received formal training in criminal justice and communications, both from UVI. Here on the island of Nevis, I am actively involved, or I have been actively in Culturama at varying levels, from being the chief of the senior pageants committee, that's Miss Culture Queen, Miss Culture Swimsuit, and Mr. Cool Contest, to being a pageant coach as well as a judge. Anything that you can think of with Culturama, I've been involved to some extent. Outside of that, I am active in my church. I am an Anglican, that's my denomination, and so I am active. I've also been active in other areas of community life, whether it is through schools or even just community, non-profit community organizations such as the Girl Guides back in my time. So in a nutshell, that is Jaedee. But there's so much more. But in a nutshell, that is Jaedee.
In a nutshell, indeed, indeed. Indeed, indeed. Thank you, thank you. Well, Jaedee, we small talk over with, because you know that you have been launched, so we have to go right into it. Jaedee, what piqued your interest about politics? What got you into that?
So politics is something that had some, perhaps maybe not the way that our politics was going, but just the idea of contributing to the development of my island specifically and my country generally was something that I always took an interest in. I was a member of I was actively involved in youth parliament, in the youth parliament while I was a student of Charlestown Secondary, and so probably that would have piqued the interest. I have followed our local politics, here and there. My class was a very active class in high school, and so we would have had our own little on the bench debates. This is on the corner, well, this was on the bench debates about politics on the island of Nevis. And so it is something that has been around for some time for me in terms of my level of interest. I told someone recently that if you were to, I'm sure that my teachers from primary and secondary school are not surprised, because I would have always been one to speak up about things that I think are important, and also speak on behalf of people who may be afraid to speak or have that voice but don't know how to use their voice. And so those teachers would say that this comes as no surprise to them. While I was a student in university, I was also involved in politics to some extent, because I was the student government president at the University of the Virgin Islands.
Reese, you with us?
Yes, boy. Yes, boy. Yes.
So, so Jaedee,
Yes, Ira.
I'm gonna get started. I have a question for you.
Sure.
If you get elected, what is your first action that you would like to take?
Okay, so the way how we are doing it in the Nevis Reformation Party, this new Nevis Reformation Party, we are going around speaking to the constituents to find out what their needs are, what they want to see. And we want to put those against what we have in mind for them. Now, we understand that immediately as we get into office, when we get into office, we cannot immediately start to roll out the programs that we want to see, at least not in the first few days. We have to look at what exists right now and understand that there is need for some cleanup of the current policies that some of the current policies that the government has going for them right now. Now, these are some of the things that we would have to pay attention to. I don't want to be a politician who goes out there and says, in the first order of business when we get into office is to build a school, because we have to be realistic. Because then when you get persons who understand how government works would know that that can't happen. You have to assess the situation from where it is at that point in time before moving forward. So I don't know that I can tell you specifically what the first order of business would be to do something like a capital project. Rather, the first order of business would be to review what exists already for the government, because remember, governments are continuous, and see what makes sense, what is feasible at that point in time, and then we would move forward.
Okay. Let's go back to your speech where you spoke about the party principles, NRP's party principles. Can you kind of let us know what the party principles are, and definitely can you
Okay.
also tell us what's the difference with the new revamped NRP as you mentioned.
Okay, okay, perfect. So it's very important that we let people know that NRP was founded on many things, one of them being that Nevis or Nevisians, persons who reside in Nevis, should have a better standard of life. We should ensure that persons have a comfortable standard of life, and make sure that if they do not, that they receive a better standard of life. So that is one of the things that has always been near and dear to the Nevis Reformation Party. We look at things like ensuring that Nevisians come first. And so any decision, when I say Nevisians, I mean persons who are residing on Nevis and persons who are citizens of the Federation as well. So any decision that we do should take into account, should be centered around, should be motivated by the needs of our people. And so that again is another principle on which the Nevis Reformation Party was found.
Okay.
People may be saying, well, if these are some of the principles and you think that they are so sound, then why are you rebranding? Why is the party saying it is new? It is because, yes, we've taken those principles, but we are matching them with the current atmosphere here on the island of Nevis. So, for example, when the party was formed, I mean, many infrastructural things weren't in place. Those would have later come on stream. And so obviously we can't operate based on a constitution or principles that were drafted 50 years ago. And so yes, we still have the basic tenets, but we would match them to exist right now. And so, for example, we understand that youth and the empowerment of youth is something near and dear to the island of Nevis. And so we compare that to one of our founding principles in terms of making sure that Nevisians come first. How can we ensure that youth, which is the focus now, come first based on our founding principles? So that is how we make that connection.
Got it. So
Are you following me?
yes,
Okay, good.
yes. Just trying to organize some of the technical difficulties that we're seeing
All right,
to be having
while
right
you do
now.
that, while you do that, JD. So, like you
Yes, please.
said, the focus is youth and things of that nature. And you said in your speech on Saturday that you want to focus on entrepreneurship and education. Why those two?
Education and training. Okay,
Okay,
perfect.
yes,
Thank you so much
education.
for that, Riz. Thank you so much for that. Now, I feel that regardless of what we do, we have to ensure that our people are empowered. We do not want a system where our people have to constantly rely on the government for assistance or have to rely on somebody else to empower them. Yes, there will be some overlap, but we want to empower our people. Again, remember I said that the NRP is all about ensuring that our people are put first, our people come first. So education and training, those are two of the education and training as one, as well as entrepreneurship. Those are two of the main things that I am pushing in this new Nevis Reformation Party, and specifically in the constituency of Nevis 1 St. Paul's. Why? because there are people out there, myself included, who would have benefited greatly from a tertiary level education. Similarly, there are persons who would have benefited greatly from training opportunities, skills training. We know that under this Nevis Reformation Party, under a Nevis Reformation Party government, rather, several of our young men who were considered to be at risk were sent overseas to receive training in various areas where they were then able to return to the island. Some of them opened their own businesses. Some of them were just better skilled in the areas that they studied and were able to receive an increase in salary and the side jobs, as we say, you have a little side hustle as a result of that training. The same goes for education. So where persons who would go to a 4-year or liberal arts college, whatever it is, even a community college, you would already put yourself at a level where you're a little bit more marketable, and the job search, the job hunt is a little bit easier for you than it is for persons who may not have that luxury. And so these are the things that I want to push to ensure that our people become empowered. I don't want to be in a system where I have to constantly be saying, here, there is $5, here, there is $10. And here people say, oh, my light's cut. Oh, I can't send my children to school. We don't want that. We believe in teaching the people how to fish so that thereafter they can do the fishing for themselves. Same goes for entrepreneurship. COVID-19, if we didn't know it before, COVID-19 would have driven it home for us that we need to diversify our economy. I know that our party leader, Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, was here on Real Talk Corner before, and she would have spoken to some of the areas in which we want to diversify the economy. But outside of that, we need more entrepreneurs. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're quitting your regular job. It just means that you have an additional stream of income. So in the event that we are faced with something similar to COVID-19, our persons aren't as cash strapped and as resource strapped as they are right now. And those things really just speak to the vision of our party in terms of empowering our people and improving their quality of life.
All right. And if you had to zone into St. Paul's a little bit, what are some of the major
Yes.
problems that you see really affecting the people of St. Paul's or even the infrastructure of St. Paul's? I know one of the thing is the drainage situation that we have in St. Paul's. Do you have anything in mind for that drainage situation or even the parking situation that's in St. Paul's?
Now, ironically, St. Paul's houses is home to the capital of the island. And I don't know that we have enough happening in St. Paul from that standpoint, to make people realize that it is the capital city. Now, I know that Nevis is situated or is structured in such a way that it has this kind of old English structure, and most of the towns in the Caribbean have that old English structure, and we want to maintain that. However, the way that our businesses are situated, the way how we do business on the island of Nevis, even government business, poses a significant challenge for persons coming to the island as well as persons living on the island. And I'll tell you what I mean. If you want to get a passport, you have to take your photo in town. You have to get the application from out of town. You take your photo in town. You have to get the stamps from one place. You go up to another place to get your birth certificate. You have to go to the police station that's in another place. So it's a lot of going around. That's just me giving an example of how our town is situated and how difficult it is to do business in the capital city. We
Mm-hmm.
want to kind of bring all of that together. Not saying that we will get everything done instantaneously, but we want to kind of have that ease of doing business in Nevis. That is something that is a challenge for us. Also, too, in the capital city, we find that there isn't room to do a lot of business in terms of, when I say business, not corporate business, but let's say you want to visit the stores or stuff of that nature. There isn't a lot of room to do that because in town we have the banks, we have the We have the banks, we don't have social security in town anymore, but several of the banks are located in the heart of town, and other businesses similar to that, financial services, these kind of things. Very little space for shops and the like. Same way, we have a market, a very beautiful market, probably one of the best in the region, but I don't know that it's being utilized to its capacity. And so we want to make doing business, doing even shopping in the island of Nevis a little bit easier. Now, so that is one of the things in terms of in the heart of Charlestown. But when I speak to the constituents generally, you hear people from Hamilton right down to Low Street, Craddock, Ramsbury. You hear people saying, imagine, we are in the capital. We are number one in terms of the constituency number, and we do not have a community center. Our sporting facilities are not up to the standard that they should be. So these are some of the things that to me pose a significant challenge, and not just to me, because that's the feedback that I'm getting from the people who live here, persons who have to walk the streets on a daily basis. And even though I am pointing out, I want to make sure I push this, even though I am pointing out the areas that need to be developed, the areas that could be enhanced, it is important for me to say that for me, government is not just about, or politics is not just about criticizing what the government is doing or is not doing, but it's about showing areas that can be improved, and about showing the level of creativity that we have, and building that confidence in people that we are the best suited ones to lead the government at this point in time. So please don't take it that I am all about bashing the government, because not at all, or even any member on the government side. That's not me. It's just about focusing on the issues and looking at what it is we do not have or we have that could be made better. Currently in St. Paul's, I think that most of the work that is being done falls under the minister's portfolio, so public works, etc., rather than specific to the empowerment of people in St. Paul's, and that is where I want to be different.
Perfect.
Nice.
Perfect.
Now, Jaedee, and just a while ago, you said two words that stuck out to me: creativity and change. Now, one of the things that I saw with you over the last maybe 3, 4 months, that was very creative, I must give it to you, is after CCM would have appointed Latoya Jones to her position, you went around and showed areas in Nevis where the money could have been spent. What was the game plan behind that?
Okay, sure. So again, like I just would have mentioned, I hold no issue with anyone personally on the government side, or even in society, or people who work for the government. And so I not at all seek to attack anyone individually. My thing is, we would have recently passed a budget, and it would have been in numerous releases, news items, etc. We and the employees would have been told that there will be a freeze on their increments and new hires by the government. They were told this. I don't know anybody who could say that this was not said. Like I said, it was all in the media. It was said. Yet we would have announced a major appointment. And while I have no issue with anyone personally, my problem is that, I mean, that is hypocrisy, and that is deceptive. And also it is showing the government's continued efforts of dictatorship, where they're saying, this is what we are going to do, whether you like it or not. This is what we are doing, and you will talk for a few days and then it will go away, because this is what we are going to do. Now, my thing is, how will the people feel? I looked at the salary scale. How do the nurses, the doctors, the teachers, how do they feel to know that this is their salary? However, someone is appointed as a community activist, a community advisor, sorry, and they're making this amount of money. I am saying, no disrespect to that person. It could have been anyone. No disrespect to anyone who is going to be appointed. It speaks to the government's lack of vision. It speaks to the government abusing public resources, and it speaks to the government not caring about the livelihoods of our people. Because yes, we don't have money to increase the civil servant salary. We don't have money to do anything major for the schools. Everywhere they go, they say they don't have money to do this, they don't have money to do that. But yet you find significant sums to pay someone who is rumored to be a politician or an aspiring politician. That is what the issue is. The abuse and the lack of vision on the part of our government.
All right. Perfect. Jaedee, one of the things that I've realized of recent in Hamilton, it seems to have an illegal dumping problem.
Yes.
Do you care to speak to this?
Yes, this I don't blame on any government particularly or any administration. I think that we as a people need to be held accountable too. We need to display some level of responsibility. And so we know that we're not supposed to be dumping things all over the place. And so that is something that I think that we need to hold for ourselves. I mean, we have a role to play as well. But if the government were to, and I've seen the solid waste department encourage people to desist from that type of behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But my thing is, if you realize that it keeps happening and nothing is, and it keeps happening and people continue to do this thing with total disregard for what it is you say, then we are going to have to up the measures. If it means that we're going to have to put some cameras in places where we know that this illegal dumping is taking place, if it means that we're going to have to increase our patrols, then we have to do so. If it means that persons who are found guilty have to suffer some significant fines, then that is what we should do. My issue is our people need to be held accountable as well. We can't just put everything on the government, but if the government realizes that its efforts aren't working, try something new. And I would have just given some suggestions. I'm open for suggestions. I'm open to give suggestions. All of us in the NRP are open for suggestions. Sometimes we need to just put the politics aside and reach out to people who are a little bit more versed in certain areas. Certainly, the NRP will not turn down the opportunity to share these ideas.
Perfect. Jaedee, a question from the audience.
Sure.
What's your approach to the youths of Charlestown to convince them in sending you straight to Parliament?
Sure. Now, the thing is, I am from Charlestown. I know the young people of Charlestown. I am not somebody who just started talking to people in Charlestown. I've always been very active in my community. And so I think that the people know me. The gentlemen and the gentle ladies from Hamilton know me. We went to school, we walked to school together. The people from Bath know me. I spent the first couple years of my life in Bath, and they claim me to this day. The same goes for Low Street. I went to school with the people there, and there is a level of Product Road, Ramsbury, all of them. And there is that level of mutual respect. They respect me, I respect them. And so I think that, yes, I won't take it for granted that they will automatically vote for me, but I think that generally there is that level of respect. And so my approach in terms of going to them will be a little bit calmer. I don't have to wonder how to speak with them. I'll speak to them how I normally speak to them, because these are people I talk to all the time. Also, quite a few of the young people are parents, just as I am. And already persons reach out to me for assistance with assignments for their children, and high school students reach out to me for assistance with their assignments as well. And so I think there's already that open dialogue. We already have that going for us. And so I think that, having the conversation with them would just be natural. It would be one that is real. It would be one that is coming from my heart as someone who they know, who they've known for a very long time.
Okay. Perfect.
Nice.
I didn't know if
Ira, you sound like you don't believe me. Let me use you, Ira, for a second. I've known you for a very long time. Is that not so?
Correct.
Is that not so? I'm interviewing the interviewer here. I've known you for a long time.
You've known me for
And
a long
That's
time.
how you do
Yes,
it.
a
yes.
very long
And
time.
so I wouldn't come to you, I wouldn't feel uneasy coming to you to speak. I would
Okay.
come to you just real and normal. That's the
Mhm.
point I'm bringing across. Just real and normal, and then the conversation goes from there.
Understood. Understood. We at Real Talk try to remain neutral as much as possible. Okay.
Yeah,
Just so, just so just so you know.
now one thing you spoke about, right, JD, is like we speaking of the
Yes.
young people. One of the things about the young people that we keep hearing is no sports,
Hmm.
no sports, no sports, no
Oh yeah.
That
sports. What
bothers
are
me,
your
you know.
thoughts? What are your thoughts? Because I know that you have a young child. If I'm correct, I think your
Listen,
child
that
is into
bothers me,
sports
you
as well. So
know.
speak to us about that.
That bothers me so much. That bothers me because I have a little track star, you know, and I was already betting on her as well as my adopted daughter. I was betting on them, you know, so that bothers me. But seriously though, I think that sports is a very integral plays a very integral role in the development of a child. It offers that good balance. We can't just expect the children to go to school all the time and it's just academics, academics, academics. And believe you me, the curriculum is so packed now compared to when we were students. It is crazy. And so my thing is children need that balance. I don't want my child to grow up feeling so overwhelmed, like it's all about academics and she's going to lose her mind because she would not have done so well this time. That is not what I want for anybody. And so I think sports offers that great balance. My other child, as I like to say, she's more excited about sports than she is about education. Not that she doesn't do her education, she does, but she's more excited about sports. And when I look at what sports does for her confidence, I am like, wow, how can I pull this from her? How can we take this from them? So I do believe that we can still have sporting activities. We could even do it in a phased approach. To just shut it off completely, to me, does not make any sense. And it kind of makes us look a little bit lazy, to be quite frank. Because look at all of the other activities that are taking place. I really don't see the rationale behind no sports across the board. It just does not make sense to me. Let us do it in a phased approach. You're worried. I mean, they say we are worried about people wearing masks. I go to school and sometimes not even the teachers have on the mask. So what really is the issue? The other day I went to an event and my
Uh-huh.
daughter said, "But mommy, we're the only ones in mask." You know, so the rationale, I'm still waiting for it. I'm still waiting for the rationale. We can have sports in a very phased approach. To me, that's just me personally.
I must say I agree. I agree with you, right? We need to handle some. We need to have some sort of sports. I think if they were serious, they would also do some sort of study into what because actually research because the study has already been done. Um, what it means for the development of the children and how sports
Hmm.
relates to that. Jaedee, so there's a question that came in, and one wants to
Hmm.
know: the NRP has introduced a leader, right? In the Dr. Janice Nisbet, Hodge,
Daniel Hodge.
Daniel Hodge. Thank you. Also,
Yes.
we've seen that in St. Thomas's Parish, we have the Honorable Cleon Stapleton.
Stapleton
Um,
Simmons. Yes.
JD is here, JD Caines tonight. And there is
Hmm.
also, I don't think it's a rumor, I think it's official. I haven't seen any official launch from the NRP, but Dr. Pat
Hmm.
Bartlett. You might think you know where this question is going, because that's an
Hmm.
all women cast. But the question is more surrounding your um your
Candidate.
no, no, no. The question is more surrounding the ability because none of the names I just called
Oh,
have ever been a part of a government. So
okay.
how do you speak to one that say you're not qualified or you should at least have somebody to help lead you, who has already been there? How do you answer
Okay.
the question of are you capable as a group to
Okay.
lead a country?
That's a wonderful question. I actually thought you were asking, when we are going to put out our full slate of candidates, which by the way, before you ask me, I can tell you that that is coming very, very soon. We
Okay.
started with my launch and then we'll be moving on to the other launches. So stick and stay. You're going to get more information in terms of
JD,
the
do not
other
take away our
candidates who will be
questions,
launched.
okay? Do not take away our questions. Please.
Okay,
But
but
she just triggered.
but as it relates to experience, that's an excellent question. Now, the thing is, bear in mind that when you are elected by a constituency, and you will fill certain posts. You will fill certain posts within the government.
Mm-hmm.
You don't necessarily need to have you don't necessarily need to have been a minister of government before to be the minister of education. You need to know what the policies are in education. You need to know what education entails. You need to know the direction that you want education to take, etc. The same goes for, let's say, information. You wouldn't have to have been a minister of education before to be the minister of education. You just need to know information. You need to know what information is, how you want information to be disseminated, etc. And I believe that the team that we have, and even teams gone, from the NRP, have always been very good in terms of the balance of our skills and expertise, right? Without giving away the names of the other candidates right now, I'll speak to who you already would have mentioned. So
Mm-hmm.
our party leader, Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge, has never sat in a government before. That is true. We're not disputing that. However, Dr. Janice Daniel Hodge brings with her a particular set of skills and area of expertise that does not exist in our current administration, nor had it existed for several years.
Got it.
And I think that is paramount. Look at the direction that the world is going in terms of the blue economy, the green economy, sustainable development, etc. Nevis will be left behind if we don't have somebody with that level of expertise
Mm-hmm.
advising us and writing our corner. And she brings that
Uh-huh.
level of expertise. And so she does not. She doesn't necessarily mean that she would have had to be a minister of government before to execute well in that area. Right? So I'm just, giving examples. You mentioned Honorable Cleon Stapleton Simmons. I mean, sometimes I wonder if Cleon sits and the Honorable Stapleton Simmons sits in government already, because when I look at the level of the amount of work that she would have done as an opposition MP, I am impressed, because she, with the little resources that she has, would have already started a foundation offering scholarships, etc. But she too is an attorney by profession. I mean, so would she have had to be the Minister of Justice and Legal Affairs to lead and offer insight in terms of our legislations? No. And so we have persons who are versed in these areas. I received formal training in communications. I've worked on the Culturama committee before. I'm part-time language arts tutor. Surely some of these things must count for something where I am able to contribute to the government without having been an elected MP before.
Yeah. Um, there is a question on screen for you, but I just want to continue along the path. Are there any particular portfolios you would love to grab if you get elected?
Of course I have certain areas of preference, but I would be guided by the team,
Mm-hmm.
because one of the interesting things about us, even with all of your likability, the likability factor, the NRP very early would have broken down the areas that you've contributed to and the areas that you're strong in, because we
Uh-huh.
want to make sure that there is some level of balance, right? And so we've already been doing that. However, I could tell you straight up, I definitely want to get my hands on information,
Mm-hmm.
because that is my passion. I when I look at and I've worked in the field before within the government, and so that is something that I can see myself taking to another level. I try to do it even now, but you know how the politics is on the island of Nevis. That is something that I want to be interested, that I am interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Culturama, I mean, I think that a few of us are looking at Culturama, but culture is something that I am definitely interested in, not just because of Culturama, but because I'm a lover of the arts. And I see that we can really go places if we were to really develop our arts effectively and efficiently. So that again is something that I'm interested in. And education again, I think that we can do so much more. We have really, really good teachers on the island of Nevis, but we can bring some diversity into education. I want to be able to empower the teachers a little bit more, so that when you ask them to go the extra mile, they don't push off their face and say, me again, me get along home daddy because this is me get prefer. No. Rather, they are so, because they are so well empowered, they say, man, I'm willing to go that extra mile. So those are just some. I don't want to ruffle any feathers. Those are just some that I am really, really interested in.
I mean, preferences are
Okay.
expected, right? Preferences are expected.
Yes,
And if you do get
yes.
cultural, I
Um,
wonder if this means we won't have any side shows, because that's one of the things I can remember. You did manage to push through the Queen show and the shows them really, really well. I know I got home in a timely manner, so kudos to you on
In
that.
good time,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Exactly.
But I still miss the side shows. I think I can tell you a lie. But
We
there is
can
the
have
um,
question.
those after.
hold, hold on,
Go
Ira,
ahead.
because one of the things that you just said was education. And
Hmm.
from hearing you speak on Saturday, I knew that education was going to be one of them. We had a show previously last season speaking about educational reform. We feel that the curriculum is still kind of stuck into when our parents went to school, because we're learning the same things that they learned and stuff like that. We need to update our curriculum. What do you feel about that?
No, I agree. But for me, it is not just about the information that is being taught to the children. Bear in mind, my biggest thing is not necessarily the information, because who am I with communication and criminal justice background to tell people who would have been trained in education what education should look like, right? So I respect and understand the views of the people who would have been trained in that area. So my issue isn't necessarily on the information, rather it is on the delivery. The delivery, in terms of, we are trying to reach children of varying personalities, varying backgrounds, varying economic situations the same way. That does not work. We don't all learn the same way. I could give you an example. So my daughter, she's still pretty young, and I let her do her own thing. But she would come home, she catches on quickly. She would come home and say, Mommy, we learned this. And I would tell her, teach me, because I want to see how, if she really understands it. And so she would teach me, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then I would show her another way. And good thing we have YouTube too. So after I show her another way, I would show her on YouTube to reinforce. And right there, you get three ways. So we get the way that the teacher would have shown her, the way that I would have shown her, and we get and so she figures out which one she wants, or if she wants to integrate them all, and that works for her. But we sitting down in a classroom and expecting to teach all these children the same way, when we know that Jakeem over there in the corner cannot sit down for a very long time, but we expect Jakeem to sit down for 8 hours and just write. It can't happen. So that is my issue. The delivery, we got to be a little bit more creative in the delivery. And some of these teachers really want to, but they complain that, they just don't either don't have the resources, or they're not empowered. They feel like anything they do, they're being shut down. And, that's something that I want to change. Hopefully we can get that changed.
Go ahead and ask the question. I had more. I'll go.
No, no,
So,
go ahead and ask
so,
the question.
so,
Go ahead
JD,
and
there's
ask.
a question from Ashley Parish Jaban. She said, "Okay, JD, how would you speak to the young people of the diaspora?" I'm not sure if you could see the question over there on the right hand side of your
Yeah, it's
screen.
kind of
Is it
small,
small?
but yeah,
Okay, I'll
yeah.
continue reading
Uh-huh.
it for you. There are so many Nevis groups set up overseas. Here in England, we have the SKN Young Professional UK, who are always promoting and rallying slash raising funds for our island. Any reassurance for us? And yes, we will go back to Sunshine Choir days, so
I see that
respect is
part.
always there. JD, there was also a question in my mind about the brain drain. So
Mhm.
this kinds of fall into the brain drain and stuff. I don't know if you see brain drain as a problem, but is there, and if you do see it as a problem, do you have any thoughts of how you could fix something like a brain drain?
Okay, so let me deal with Ashley real quick. Good night, Ashley. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Say hi to Shani and Fallon for me. Now, um, the people who would have relocated from the island of Nevis, I personally feel that you are still very much, you still have a very big role to play in the development of the island. People move around for different reasons. I don't judge. I would have had to leave Nevis to receive tertiary level education. So there's no judgment from me. If you are out there, I think it is the onus is on you to really try to help the island that would have helped to mold you to develop some more. One of the things I think though is lacking is a proper plan in place where we can find out what your needs are. And I'm not speaking necessarily to you specifically, but groups such as yours in the diaspora are, what your needs are and how they can, how you can benefit us and how we can benefit you. And I think that sometimes is a discussion that does not happen. And so persons just, we can't expect persons or groups to just sit back and you do things, but then you wonder, well, what will come to me, what will come to us. Of course you will get frustrated because you feel like you're going out there doing all of this work and nothing is coming to you. And the same way the government would sit back and say, but they just expect us to give to them, just give to them all willy nilly. No. So I think there needs to be some formal communication where you indicate, you and others indicate, this is what we want to do, and this is how we think it can benefit. And then the government does the same. That way there is proper dialogue. We know what your goals and objectives are. We know what our goals and objectives are. And I'm saying we, being in the government, know what our goals and objectives are, and then, we can have that exchange. If not, we will always be stuck. We will always have that bottleneck where there's no progress. And so really and truly, that I think is the main issue, Ashley. Imagine if that happens, then there is no ambiguity. You will know that this year I want to raise $5,000 and it's going to go towards purchasing school books for the children of Low Street, for example. And there is no discrepancy there because that would have already been communicated. You said what you wanted to do, and the government said where the need was. So that is what I think. There needs to be that dialogue where you explain your goals and objectives, and the government explains its goals and objectives. Sometimes it's communication. That's all that is missing. Oh, sorry, and Ira, you asked about the brain drain.
Yeah.
I think to some extent I would have touched on this earlier because there is no diversification.
Okay.
Let me tell you something. We have people going off to study, and it's almost as if everybody wants to study the same thing. Don't get me wrong. You should be able to study what you want to study. However, I think the government has a role to play in terms of identifying key areas.
Okay.
And yes, I would say that they do it sometimes, but I don't know that it is done early enough
Yeah.
and as vigorous as it should be done. So do not wait until people leave high school to talk about the areas that need persons to be employed in. Imagine, for years the government had trained one pharmacist from back in the either 70s or 80s with no plan of training another one. That couldn't happen. That just didn't make sense. And it was not until the Nevis Reformation Party would have come in that there was able to be some shift in that. These are the kind of things we need to be looking to the future. There needs to be some vision. So rather than the government offering assistance to 5 people or 10 people to study the same field, say, listen, these are the areas where we need people, and talk to the children from the in first and second form. That way they can already start to craft what it is they want to do, rather than waiting until the very end when they would have already chosen their subjects in school. They would have already identified their area. I know that I wanted to be in communication since I was probably like in second form, because I had a little stint at Van Radio and I loved it so much. I say no, I liked it before, but I think this is where I really, really want to go. From that young, yes, everybody doesn't know that young, but I think introducing it to our people at an early age can really help in terms of that diversification, honestly. And again, where we are pushing more skills training, that again will help, because no longer will everybody feel that your children have to get a 4-year degree. And no longer would everybody would others feel that if they don't get a 4-year degree that they're doomed. They would realize that, man, there is a balance. You can have a 4-year degree in a particular area, or you can even get skills training. And so, I think that would create for a more diversified, a more attractive Nevis economy.
Excellent. I like the ideas. I like the ideas actually. I really like I like that. I like that answer. And Reese, are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm listening. JD's on the ball tonight. JD. So one of the things you spoke about was skill training, right? And you
Yes.
said after school, then but why don't we have? Why can't we introduce some of these into schools? Like we know that everyone that in school is not going to be going to get an A in maths and an A in English, but some of them good with their hands, some of them could draw, right? So
Yes.
why
Yes.
don't we actually take it a little further and have some of these actually introduced in school? Like for example, plumbing, electrician. These are people that we need. Why not introduce these fields earlier?
And JD,
Yes.
I'm going to borrow a question from a show that we had with the Honorable Troy Labor. Alan Powell actually asked this question. He asked him about the thought of introduction of civics into the school system. Do you think there
Mm-hmm.
is a need for civics to be taught, especially at the elementary, earlier part of the education system?
So, very good point. First off, by Riss, in terms of introducing some of these subjects earlier. We do have some being currently being offered in school, because I know when I was in secondary school, a lot of the subjects were offered. The problem I had, though, we only offered certain subjects, or the skills subjects, to persons who in the quote unquote lower streams. And so imagine me, I always wanted to sew, and that was not offered, at least at CSS. It was, I think, eventually at GSS, for persons in the A stream, in the A1 and A2 streams. So that, I think, is something that's worth looking into. But I agree with the notion of having these more skills introduced in school, even if it means during that Wednesday afternoon quote unquote clubs session. So we could extend the offerings for our children and have those things in there as well. The same goes for after school programs, because one of the things that I've realized, I probably when I became a parent, I noticed it, was that some of our schools, particularly those on the windward side of the island, were struggling in terms of numbers, because there's nobody, the parents work in the city, the parents work in town, and so there's nobody to be at home with the children, which means they bring them to a school in town, and then the zoning becomes so strict, and so they end up sending them to the private schools. So in some cases, the private schools get greater numbers than the public schools. And no disrespect to the private schools, because my daughter attended a private school for a brief moment, but I think that if some of these things were offered at the schools after school, then we would be killing two birds with one stone. One of the things we would be doing is to ensure that the children are more diverse in terms of their learning and what they're exposed to. And two, we will be ensuring that, actually three things, because two, we will be ensuring that our schools, our public schools are well numbered. They're equipped, and they have good student to teacher ratio. Imagine we sending off teachers to train. We have some of the best teachers for them to come back and teach one and two or even six children. So I just think, not saying we should overcrowd the schools, but we all know that there is a problem in some of the schools because of that. And the third thing too, we would be ensuring that our children, and this is a big one for me, are not being left at home to be parents to their younger siblings simply because mommy and daddy have to work, and grandparents are no longer Henrietta and Inez, but grandparents are Sharon and Marcella, persons who are still relatively young, still employed.
Okay.
Civic.
Wait, hold
Civic.
this question, family. Hold on, we'll get to the first
Civics,
question.
yeah.
Hold
Well,
on.
I touched. Sorry.
Unless you cut
Wait,
out.
hold on. No. One thing I want to get to, because where we on it. So one of the things that we have is subject being put against subjects. So if I'm correct, if I remember correctly, I think was technical drawing was put against information technology or something of that nature. So you have to pick one or the other. And sometimes some of these subjects actually go hand in hand. So
Yes.
why don't we open it up so that, okay, you're in A1, but you could take a class with an A2 class to fulfill the subject. What do you think about
Yes.
that?
I agree. You know what, Riz? That problem will only be solved, or let me not say only, because maybe there are other ways to solve it. That problem will best be solved, I think, if we were to really look at the current structure of the relationship between the Nevis Sixth Form College and the secondary school. And I'll tell you why. We have to share the resources in terms of space and teachers. And so that is why it is a bit difficult to have wider offerings in terms of subjects. Imagine, I went to sixth form in St. Kitts for that very reason, no other reason but that. The subjects that I wanted to do were against each other. And so I couldn't, I would have had to choose one or the other, and it just did not make sense for me. It just wasn't feasible either. And so I went to CFBC, where the teachers are dedicated, the hours were longer, and so the classes started earlier and ended later, and so you were able to fit in there in between. Currently, our situation, it is a bit of a challenge. I'm not bashing the education officers or even the those at the top in education, because I personally think that our principal education officer is really, really trying, and the same goes for the education officers and the principals. The problem though is that there is no direction. It must come from the top. The policy must come from the top and trickle down to them. And so if we were to seriously look at the current structure, the relationship between the sixth form and the Charlestown Secondary School, we would realize that we could offer a whole lot more, if we were to separate them. Right now, the situation of having the teachers go between the two is really causing a strain on the teachers, because you can't be in two places at once, even though our ministers are in two places at once, or like to make us feel you can't be in two places at once. And so that poses a bit of a challenge. I think it really can be solved though, if we were to separate the sixth form from the Charlestown Secondary School.
I think that's a good idea. But I mean, if you separate the sixth form from the Charleston Secondary School, right? Do you think the six they should offer more than just the CAPE
Of
examination?
course. Of course. I mean, the sixth form, well, we're using it as the name sixth form,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't even have to look very far for a model. We just have to look to the sister island for a model. Yes, it's not perfect, but it has been working. It has been working. My mother has 4 children. 2 of us went to school at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryan College, and 2 went to school at the Nevis Sixth Form College. The one who went to school at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryan College with me, we did something completely different. I did art, science, and general studies, which is sixth form, and my sister did culinary arts / hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
So, right, same institution, but the offerings were completely different. If we were to separate the 2 institutions, I mean, yes, we can have so much more. And if the teachers at the Charlestown Secondary School see an opportunity to teach at the sixth form, because that's what it's called right now, but it would be, probably the Nevis the Nevis College of the Arts, or whatever it is we want to call it, whatever
Yeah.
it is, then they can do so on a part-time basis, maybe in the evening. But I really think that that is hampering us right now, honestly.
I agree. I agree. Jaedee, you mentioned that you have a degree in criminal justice, right?
Hmm.
How do you see you using this degree to help Nevis, maybe Nevis and St. Kitts? What are your thoughts on the current situation and how we are handling our crime problem? Do you see it as something
Yes.
sustainable or?
Now, for me, the problem that I have with anything is that we need to look at what it is we are trying to achieve and what duration we are putting on these things. I believe that the reason why we have, for the most part, I'm not going to speak in a vacuum, but for the most part, the reason why we're having, we would have had, and we still do to some extent have issues with crime and violence, because crime also entails robberies, etc., is because our people aren't empowered. When our people are busy, they don't have time for foolishness. They don't
Mm,
have time to get involved in delinquent behavior. When the young men are making money and the young women are making money, they're not stealing. They're not stealing because their pockets full. They can sustain themselves and their families, and people like that. People actually like to know that they are able to assist their families and they are able to enjoy a certain standard of living. So the issue for me is it really comes up right down to, it's a ripple effect. It really comes right back to some of the programs and policies that we have in place. What is in place right now to empower these people to ensure that they can be, what's the word I'm looking for, that they can be occupied so much so that there is no need to resort to delinquent behavior. And this education and training that I would have mentioned, and the idea of boosting entrepreneurship that I would have mentioned, I believe can help greatly in that regard. And so yes, I do think that my degree can help, but it really boils down, to be honest, maybe it's the psychology part of the degree, but it really boils down at the end of the day to empowering our people. When you have people who are empowered, they don't find time for other things.
yeah, okay, that's a good point. JD, when you talk about entrepreneurship and skills, are there like any particular sector that you would like to get going immediately? You see a need for it in the country or actually in the island of Nevis. Um, any Go ahead.
Yeah. So I am looking on, right? I'm looking on at some of the things that our young people have been doing. And I am impressed with the creativity that they've come up with, the creativity that is being displayed. But I also know that there are a lot of people who want to do things, but they don't know where to start. And when they do start, they found that they're not able to stay in business very long because there aren't any real incentives for them, and other thing, a host of other things that makes it quite difficult. But in terms of looking at areas, now remember I said with boosting entrepreneurship, we would be able to create jobs for our people. Now there are people who require certain services such as plumbing. Let's start with plumbing. You always need a plumber. There's always work for a plumber to do
Mhm.
because your pipe, somebody pipe will always be burst. That will always happen. So you always need you always need an electrician, because when you have a home, Nevis people very fancy. When they have their homes, they want electricity, as they should have electricity, and so you will always need electrician. These are just some of the basic ones. Always need that. Also, too, I think that in some of the situations, some of the cases, people can do the jobs that the government has. You can subcontract it. So, for example, if you would have studied engineering, you can come on board as a consultant to the government on a particular project. You understand? You don't
Yeah.
necessarily have to be employed with the government all the time. So you can spread your services around. So again, you can work in the area of consultancy. We need persons who are specialized in certain areas. And so, yes, we have teachers and we train them generally, but we're finding that we have people who we have more and more persons are dyslexic and have other little differences when it comes to learning and evolutioning. And so we can get persons focusing on these areas as well, and that comes to the education and the education side of it. But there is no limit to what we can do in Nevis, especially with the advent of the internet, or not advent because it has been around for some time, but with internet and technology being so easily accessible. I mean, there's no limit to what we can do in Nevis if we are empowered and if we get that support that is required.
Jaedee, you spoke, you touched off the mental health for the children. As you said that Ashley Harris Jabang immediately responded and said she'd love to hear like your views on this, the mental health for children in school. So I don't. Can you
Listen,
go? Yeah.
mental health for everybody is extremely important. I tell people all the time, it's a thin line. It's a very, very thin line, especially in light of all that is going on between somebody who seems to be okay and somebody who is not okay. Very, very thin line. But in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and let me speak of Nevis specifically, we have put this taboo, we have put this negative view when it comes to mental health. If you were to speak to a counselor, people automatically think that you're crazy. But we need to make these things normal. We need to make these things just as normal as brushing our teeth is normal. We need to ensure that people have that avenue where they can just release. People can talk about the things that are bothering them, because I'm telling you, there are people walking around, children walking around with problems as if they have bills to pay. Their children, and you see them acting out in schools. Their children walking around with so many problems. There are parents walking around with even greater problems, wondering how are they going to feed their children. Then the bank is calling them. The child mash up his shoes at school. These are it's a lot of problems. And sometimes, like I said, it's just a thin line. I may be on this show tonight speaking to the people of the diaspora as well as in St. Kitts and Nevis, and something happens tonight, God forbid, that causes me to just take on a different frame of mind. So it's getting more and more prevalent, and we as a society need to come away from the stigmatization, come away from placing a stigma on these things, and be more come to that level of embracing. And so if we were to make it normal, make normal, make psychology normal, sorry, sociology normal, then that, I think, can only be down to our benefit.
A quick question came in as
Right.
well. Your thoughts on people being bribed for their vote.
Listen, let me tell you something. I don't ask me to commit a crime to get into office, then expect me to be upright and forthright when I'm in office. And that's really what it is. Don't ask me to break the law out of office just to get into office. And then when I get in, complain that I'm not being forthright. Because where would you draw the line? It's okay for me to break the law this time, but it's not okay for me to break the law that time. But even bigger than, and that just speaks to me personally in terms of my view, my integrity. But even bigger than that, what I have an issue with is our people not opening our minds. And I say our because it's all of us, not opening our minds to realize what happens when we do these kind of things. Imagine an election comes around once every 5 years, once every 4 years, and we give you $2,000 for your vote. I did okay in maths, but I'm an English student. So we did $2,000, right, for your vote.
400 a year.
That's
400 a year.
60. Okay, Okay, you understand. And maybe you need to break it down even further to talk about how much per month. So that's $33 a month. So you are telling me that all you are worth is $33 per month? And then let me go a little further and break it down. The $33 per month divided by the 31 days in a month, $1 per day is what you're saying that you're worth. That cannot be right. Whereas, mind you, that's $2,000 every 5 years. Whereas you get a job where you get $2,000 per month, and I'm just using the same 2,000 as an example. Look at the difference. $2,000 per month where you are able to pay your bills and assist your families, etc., versus $2,000 every 5 years. We cannot continue to make the politicians feel like this is all we are worth. We cannot. And my thing is, you as the electorate, we as the electorate need to realize, man, we are worth more than this. And the cycle is not going to change. Persons are going to come. They realize that that is what you're worth and that is what they're going to give. How come they never offered me any money? Nobody has ever offered me any money. Nobody has ever offered. No, they wouldn't dare because they recognize that Jaedee thinks that she's worth far more than that. There are so many other people who would tell you that they were never offered any money for their vote because the government, the opposition, whomever, the politicians generally recognize that they are worth more than that. And so you have to ask yourself, but wait, how come they have them at that level and have me at this level? These are some of the things we have to ask ourselves, but it comes down to what you think you are worth. If you think you are worth $1 per day, then sorry. But I know that I am worth more than $1 per day. My child's future is worth more than $1 per day. And another thing too, the reason why persons sometimes take this money is out of desperation because things are hard. Imagine the same people, sometimes the government would have put you in a situation where you can't pay your electricity bill. They send them to cut off your electricity and send them to cut off your water. But then they're going to come and they're going to give you $500 and say, pay your electricity bill and water with it. Well, no, you cut it off. No, you cut it off. You understand? So these are the kind of things that we need to look at. Our people need to understand, come on, we can't continue like this. We cannot, we have enjoyed a fairly okay standard of living because the people who came before us would have put certain things in place for us. What is being put in place now for our children? I have a small child. I need to ensure that when she gets to my age, she's not reliant on mommy and daddy for every single thing. That she is able to live comfortably. She can go to school, education. She's able to set up a business. These are the kind of things I want for my child. And I think everybody should want it for their children. So I say no to this issue of bribery. I say no to this issue of exploitation because that is what it is. You're exploiting the circumstances of people. That people are struggling, and so you come in like as if you're Superman and you give them $2,000 every 5 years and they say, yes, they care for me, they give me $2,000, when in truth and in fact you're getting $400 a year based on recent calculation, $33 a month, and $1 per day, $1.00 per day. Can't be right.
Wow, that's a lot, boy.
Maybe a million.
Chat nothing takes.
No, not that. But when you break it down, the 2000 spread over that time period. When you really break it down, you really see what it's really worth. A question came in from DJ Nayan. He wants to know, who are your political mentors?
Good question. Nayan, to be honest, I've never really given it much thought. I look at people and I pull certain things from them. I won't say that I pull anything wholesale. Like I see one person and I say, I like all of this about this person. And so this person I look up to in politics, because in truth and in fact, the politics and the politicians that we've seen, some of them have done a lot of shady things, And so, whereas they would have done a lot of good things in this area, there are some areas that are not so good. So I don't take anybody wholesale, but I do believe that both on the NRP side as well as on the CCM side, I would have seen certain qualities that I look to and that I look at and I am impressed with, and I try to mirror. I would say that.
All right, got you. Another question came in. What are your thoughts on session? Do you have any thoughts about this session?
Listen, for me, it comes down to what it is we are capable of, what it is we are able to do at a particular point in time. So if I don't have a problem with the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. I like the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis if we are doing things and we are equally, or maybe not benefiting equally, but it's equitable. Yes, it's equitable, then and it works for us, not a problem. But if the island of Nevis, there's nothing wrong with wanting more. And so if the island of Nevis would have set up itself in such a way that we feel that we are able to sustain ourselves, then why not step out on our own? Nobody should be vexed with us to step out on our own. However, I wouldn't just get up. I'm sorry, I can't just get up and say, yes, I think that Nevis should seek secession, because currently, the current framework, I don't see that Nevis is in a position right now to take that step. I don't see it. And it really and truly, it speaks to how we've been able to set up ourselves. I don't see it. But I am not opposed to it going down the road. I am not opposed to anyone, any party, any organization boosting itself and realizing, listen, I would have put in the work, I want more, I deserve more, and I can get more. Then go right ahead.
All right, good answer. Good answer. Another question from the crowd, from our audience. If you were in government, how would you handle the current severance situation? The severance situation.
Okay. Now, I can't speak to the current severance situation without going back, because we didn't get here overnight. That's the reality. We didn't get here overnight.
Okay.
And it's a shame that we are in the situation that we are in. And it's a shame that in some cases, persons who would not have been part of the setting up have to feel the squeeze. But the reality is, at the end of the day, I kind of mark our government, our Nevis government, a little bit harder than previous governments, because of the fact that our Nevis government is part of a coalition that speaks to better for Nevis, better for all, fair share for all. And so I would have hoped that from the Nevis standpoint, we would have been able to lobby a little bit more. Notwithstanding, I accept and I can understand that we have to go back before we can address we have to look back before we can speak to the current situation. Now, every employee pays, or should be paying money towards the severance, because it is taken, at least that's how I know that my money is calculated, that my employer takes money from my salary every month, and some of it goes, and it shows the breakdown, some of it goes to this fund, social levy, some of it goes to this, and there's the severance as well. And so, yes, I understand, because I work in the financial services sector. Yes, I understand that government puts money to invest, but I just think that it speaks to fiscal irresponsibility while we are in the situation that we are in. And probably now is as good a time as any to totally review how the severance fund is handled and use it for the purpose that it was created. And that means when you deduct persons, and maybe you can even look at the calculation, because maybe the calculation is causing us to be in difficulty as well. But when we deduct the money, now that we know that COVID-19 and other things can happen, when you deduct people's money, you ensure that it is there for them if and when they are no longer employed. Like I said, it may mean that we have to redo or revisit the calculations, because remember, the calculations kind of goes to the length of service, and so sometimes that can be a bit of a disadvantage. But hey, it is not beyond us. We have people with finance background who can help us greatly in that regard. So it calls for, in a nutshell, it calls for us to look at what exists right now and definitely review the calculations. But generally, we have to use the fund for the purpose that it was intended. And even if you want to invest some of the money, for God's sake, you can't invest all. You cannot invest all. And so that would be my response to that.
All right. So I have one personal question. This is my last question on my handy dandy notebook. So as we know, saying it's not saying it's Nevis, apologies. Nevis is always in election mode. We go from federal to local, local to federal, back and forth, back and forth. What do you think about having both local and federal elections on the same day?
I have no issue with that at all. No issue with that at all. That would, I mean, the amount of money that is spent to fund election campaigns, that would be brought down so much. Same thing goes for having set election dates. That again is another suggestion. But I am totally in favor of having local and federal elections simultaneously. You have a slate of candidates, you put your X for your local candidate, the same time you put your X for your federal candidate. I have no issue with that. I think that is the way that we need to go, because I mean, every 2 years it's an election in Nevis. Gosh, man, it's crazy.
That's how I feel. That's
Every two
exactly how I
years
feel.
it's an election in. It's draining. It's draining on the electorate. It's draining on the politicians. And I mean, I have a heart. I would say it's draining on the government as well, because it's like you're always in election mode. So just do it one time, and that's it.
Um, there's a long question here. Question: Learning with the intention of gaining knowledge is one thing. For students trying to build their career, pursuing degrees, whether undergrad or graduate, it becomes a chore, more so a prerequisite. Why did it move? More so a prerequisite. Hold on, I have on the automatic command thing. More so a prerequisite to success. Yet, when students have successfully achieved such, they have so many difficulties finding employment. And I think you would have touched on this. What do you,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. What do you say to these instances? It decreased their confidence, especially being taught that education is power. Also, sometimes your credential don't seem to matter. So
Yes.
are those sacrifice worth it?
Yes. Don't ever think that you don't need to enhance yourself or invest in yourself. You do. Maybe not in the particular area that you're looking at, but I am all for self advancement, and I'm all for continuous learning. You never know enough. There's always more to learn. But I would have touched on it earlier in case you were late. I would have spoken to identifying areas where there is a need on the island. Yes, I am not saying that it doesn't. Yes, I'm sorry. No, I'm not saying that you cannot go out there and study what you want to study. But if you do that, understand then the onus would be on you to create and seek employment in that area. However, if we would have identified areas where persons are needed, and not today for today, but down the road. So, for example, we know that we would have trained a pharmacist 20 years ago. Hey, it's time to train pharmacists again. And so if we already have a running list, we create a running list and keep that, then I mean, that would help us greatly. Persons can know early what it is they want to do or what the options are, and they can start to channel the subject choices along those lines. So from early in school, you know this list, maybe first, second form, you already know, and so you already start to gravitate towards that, rather than at the very end, and then you already go off to study, you return home, and then bam, there's nothing for you to do because that area is already saturated. So that, in a nutshell, that is how I would have addressed that question earlier.
And keeping it going, what kind of factory, and I think this person is talking towards the manufacturing industry. What kind of factories do you think will benefit the island of Nevis at this point to boost employment?
At this point is key in that question.
Yeah.
At this point. And so at this point, I don't know that I can easily right away say this factory would benefit the island at this point. But it does not mean that Nevis cannot benefit from a factory going forward. It just means that it would require some restructuring. It would require some thought. We have to. It's another thing that we don't do a lot of in Nevis: plan. We get up and say we want to do this, but we don't put a plan in place. And to go back again to the leader of the party that I'm associated with, that is something that she's very, very big on in terms of planning, breaking it down to see, what exactly are your goals and objectives, how much it would cost you, what are the pros, what are the cons, who will benefit, who will contribute to it. And so those are things we need to do some more research in that area in order to determine the factories that can benefit the island of Nevis. Right now, not a factory, but right now, and it has been for some time, there is work being done in the area of agro-processing that has been working, and that I think can continue. We can do some revamping here or there, but that can continue. But right now, at this time, as outlined in your question, I don't see any right away that can benefit Nevis. What Nevis needs to do right now is to offer more education and skills training for its people, and then we can talk about going down that road.
Okay. All right then. Reese, you had anything?
Yeah, well, we're gonna bring this question up. As a woman entering politics in a small island where people attack you personally when they can't attack you professionally, how do you intend to deal with the negative attacks?
The same way I've been dealing with negative attacks throughout life. I don't sweat the little things and I don't pet the little things. I focus on the issues. If you want to come, and I can use an example. If Ira wants to talk about, I'm having a conversation with Ira, and Ira wants to say, oh, Jaedee is not equipped to be a member of government because Jaedee has 2.3 boyfriends. I would listen to Ira and I would tell Ira, thank you very much for pointing out that I have 2.3 boyfriends. By the way, that's allegedly, I'm not saying that is so. If Ira was to say that Jaedee has 2.3 boyfriends, I would listen to Ira. I would listen to him, and then I would say, okay, Ira, now that you've pointed out that I have 2.3 boyfriends, how is that helping the education sector? How is that helping you to receive better health care when you visit the Alexandra Hospital on Government Road? How is that helping you to seek, and how is that helping you to gain employment in the area that you would have studied and spent considerable sums in school? So the point that I'm making is I am focusing on the issues. If persons want to deal with the personal attacks, they can go right ahead, but understand that it does absolutely nothing for me, because I am focused on issues, and that is how I've always been. I don't sweat the little things and I don't pet the little things. For me, my country is at stake. My daughter's future is at stake. The future for my godchildren, my grandchildren unborn, my siblings and my nieces and nephews unborn is at stake. That for me is something that is worth far more than any personal attack that anybody can throw my way. And it has, by the way, it has nothing to do with a woman with women in politics, because quite frankly, I don't want to think that I would have gotten here simply because I'm a woman and I have nice hair. I don't want to think so, and I wear lipstick and mascara. Rather, I think that I am here because the Nevis Reformation Party would have felt that I am the most suitable in time. And so I don't want you to vote for me just because I am a woman. Even though you say you're going to vote for me because I'm a woman, I accept it. I want you to vote for me because when you compare the two, or the three, how many ever persons are coming up in this race in St. Paul's. You listen to us and you judge us based on what it is we're doing and our level of competence, and you select me because I am the most suited person, not because I am a woman, and not and don't decide not to choose me because I am a woman as well.
Yeah.
All right.
And if you had 2.3 boyfriends, JD, I wouldn't bring that up because that showed that you could manage things well. Okay? So I don't think that's
Oh
a
my
good point. I
Okay.
do not think that's a good point.
Um.
Right,
All
Reese.
right. My last thing is we spoke about civics, but we didn't get an answer.
The civic.
What do you think about introducing civics into schools?
Okay, so I touched on it, but I didn't go deep into it. I don't have enough information on, and just being frank, on civics and how it will be broken down at the primary school level to be able to give an informed decision. But what I can do is refer to persons who are more skilled in that field, and look at the pros and the cons, see how it will be introduced, what would be the weight of the subject offering, and then we can make a more informed decision. But perhaps if Alan Powell would have made the suggestion, it's because he knows of the benefits and the disadvantage. Sorry, he knows of the pros and the cons. He would have already given some thought to it. So perhaps that's a conversation that we can have. But generally, I do think that there are certain subjects that should be introduced earlier in school.
All right. Thank you, JD. Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you. Thank you.
JD, I will
Yes,
not let you leave this show without addressing something that may come from your paternal side, right?
my person. Okay, legalizing marijuana.
Correct. What's your thoughts?
I'm all for it.
Okay.
I don't have an issue. I mean, I think that should be expected. But I don't have an issue. Before, I wasn't as open-minded to it, because I would not have had as much information. And even though I don't say I have all of the information
Mhm.
from what I've seen and from what I've read and from what I've listened to, I definitely don't see an issue in decriminalizing the herb, the use of the herb, as well as even going full force into legalizing it. Yes, there are certain things that I think though should be put in place. Because abuse of anything is not good, whether it's marijuana, um, even combing your hair a particular way, anything that you do too much of is not good, right? And so obviously there would be some guidelines, etc. But generally I'm for it. I don't have a major issue. And especially from a religious standpoint, I mean, this is 2021. The time has come for us to stop discriminating against people because of religion, because of where they're from, because of things that they can't control, or even certain choices that they make that would not be affecting anybody or causing harm or anything to anybody else. So we need to emancipate ourselves from mental slavery, really.
Jenny, you had a
I
strong
like that.
expression on your face when you said the word from, where they're from. Do you think Nevis have a
Mhm.
problem with like xenophobia or anything of the sort?
Yes, yes, yes. And you know what? Sadly, I think it happens because our politicians have been exploiting it,
Mm-hmm.
because it works. It works. It works when you tell people that this party, you pit people against each other. This party doesn't like you if you're from this place. It works because then you instill fear in people, and then they naturally would gravitate to you, not because they so love you, but because they are fearful. But I do think that it's something that we need to change. Sometimes it's because some of us have only been confined to our physical spaces. Sometimes we've only been confined to our physical spaces, and so we have not, allowed our minds or even our physical bodies to physically move from from where we are accustomed to another part of the world, so that we can experience life and experience people of different cultures and backgrounds, etc. Why we think that way. My thing is, as long, and the NRP's thing is, as long as people are doing things the right way, meaning if you come to our island, regulate your status, regulate your status. Nobody wants to look down on you, nobody wants to embarrass you, nobody wants to send you back to another island or send you back to your home island, knowing that you would have come here to make life better. The idea is, the understanding is, we just want you to regulate your status so that we can know. And this is nothing new, because in other countries you have to do it. I went to school in the US Virgin Islands. I couldn't just be in the US Virgin Islands all willy nilly. I had to regulate my status. Immigration had to know when I was there, when I was leaving, etc.
Yeah.
But guess what? Once they knew that, they gave me no trouble. They gave me no trouble, and that is all that we are asking for. Nobody is trying to discriminate against anybody. We just want, from the NRP standpoint, we just want people to do things correctly and in order. But I am putting an appeal out here to our people, because we too have a role to play. We need to be a little bit more loving, and we need to embrace people a little bit more, because many of our family members have gone abroad. There was something I learned in Caribbean studies in sixth form many years ago, called the grandfather clause.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what they teach them now, but many of our grandparents and great grandparents, etc., would have gone overseas to other islands in the Caribbean to make life better back in the day. And so some of these people who we see coming back to our shows now really have ties to our island. I mean, not all, but some of them really do. And so these are things that we need to really consider. Also, too, we like when we hear free movement and CSME and all them things. We like to use those fancy terms, but are we really open to the full implications? Are we really open to the full extent of what these things offer or these things come with? So I just want to encourage our people generally to step away from the level of discrimination. It's not nice, because then it's trickling down to our children, where they are discriminating against each other, not wanting to play with each other because of what people look like, because of where people are from, or even their socioeconomic status. And it's not nice. It's really not nice, and I would encourage all of us to desist from such.
Yeah. It's actually a topic that I've reached out to people from different communities trying to have here on Real Talk Corner, but they're afraid. They feel like
Yeah,
of course.
it's
Yeah,
sad.
yeah,
It's sad.
yeah. But Jaedee, we're about to round up. Reese, I didn't know if you
Okay.
had any more questions.
Well, there's one more question, and this is gonna be the last question that we take from the viewers. This one
Mhm.
comes from Emmanuel Richards. How do you feel about 7 ministers in government, seeing that the workload is so much for one minister?
Eddie.
The workload is so much for one minister, because our ministers aren't dedicated to the jobs that are assigned to them, really. And that's the real issue here. Our ministers aren't dedicated to the jobs that are assigned to them. And so we have ministers with very, very heavy ministerial portfolios. I can understand and appreciate that, they're human, and so they can't be here, there, and everywhere. And so the ministers themselves have to look at this. You have to look at what it is you're capable of doing, when we are reaching out there. And so that is one of the reasons why the Nevis Reformation Party would have taken a principled stance and say that as long as you are elected, as long as you are elected to Parliament, as long as you are an MP in the Nevis Island Assembly, you cannot simultaneously hold a post in the federal government for that reason. Because guess what? We would have done it in the past, but nothing is wrong with change. We realize that, based on where we are now, it's not feasible. There is need for change, and so we would have made that change. And I am for it. People like to talk about double salary and all of that. I'm not even getting into that. For me, it's about the fact that we have so much to do, right? That is the bigger issue. We have so much to do on the island of Nevis, and we are not nowhere near living up to our true potential in terms of what we're getting from the current administration, that we really shouldn't be looking to sit in both cabinets simultaneously. And I would have supported the move had I seen more happening for the island of Nevis out of the union. But I don't, and so I can't say that I can't say that having 7 ministers is the issue. Not that I'm throwing it to the back. I'm just saying that perhaps if we were to really focus on the jobs that we have right now, then we probably could get a little bit more done. Also, too, governments need to start reaching out to there needs to be a better relationship between the government and the opposition, because the reality is, if even if there is one seat in the opposition, that person was elected, and so that person shouldn't be treated as just, just on the side. That person can offer a lot to what is done in government, and these are, we need to open our minds to this level of thinking. But I think it is when you're not confident in your abilities, it is not when you're not confident in the work that you would have done, that you operate in this way.
All right.
All
All
right.
right. And I think Jaedee, you did an excellent job tonight. Um,
Thank you.
and
Thank
thank
you.
you for stopping by. One
Thank
more
you guys so
question.
much for having me.
One more
Sure.
question before you go, and I'm gonna let you say your piece to those that you're gonna be appealing to for voting for you, and maybe on a the wider audience for your entire team. I did see
Hmm.
Judy Cornelius Webb says speak to the Spanish community. I don't know if you want to do that before you go as well, but my
I'm
question
looking
here
Oh my
forward to
is
going.
Real
goodness.
Talk Corner is in
Mhm.
support of political debates. We would like to organize a political debate. We're putting
Mhm.
you here on this spot right now, and if we are able to get others to sign on, will JD sign on for a political debate for the next? Okay, that's a stupid question.
Is that even a
I
question?
just
Is that even a
I need
question?
it to
Of
be
course.
we need it to be
We need
said
to make sure we get a
because
yes.
yeah
We need, yeah, yeah.
we need it to be said, and we need
Yes,
people to
yes, I
see
would
you saying yes.
definitely. Yes, yes, I am in favor of that. As a matter of fact, I think that that is something that should have started a long time ago. It should be encouraged. I would have heard one person on the government side say previously that parliament is where people come for debates. But yes, that is when you're already elected, you go to parliament and there is a debate.
Yeah,
But what happens to before? People may want to hear from you, or they should want to hear from you before you are actually elected. That could probably help to make up their minds. But I don't know what is the I don't know that anybody on the NRP side is against a political debate. I've never heard any of my colleagues say that they are against it. We've never been, and I don't think that any of them currently is afraid to do so, or maybe afraid is not the word, but does not want to do it. And so if you guys are able to, hey, count me in. I'm right there. I'm
we
right there. I would
All
definitely
right.
be open to
oh
it.
we gonna try.
Oh, we're
Hmm.
gonna
We
try.
will try
Oh, we gonna work hard.
hard,
Uh,
very
JD, what
hard.
definitely want to say thank you. Thank you for being here with us, and use this opportunity to speak to your supporters and get everything out.
And the ones that you would
Yes.
encourage to support for your
I
support.
was
Yeah,
just about to say, not just my supporters, but persons who we want
Indeed,
to
indeed,
bring over. For me, it
indeed.
is not about who you've always voted for. It is not about having that sense of loyalty, even though that is good. I want you to understand that this Nevis is a Nevis for all of us. All of our children have to live in this Nevis. All of our sisters and brothers and aunts and uncles and mothers and fathers and grandparents, etc., have to live in this Nevis. And so we should really have a say in what is happening in this Nevis. I don't want you, because your family is a CCM, is a quote unquote a CCM family, to just naturally just put a block when it comes to myself or any of the other members of the Nevis Reformation Party. Likewise, if your family is a diehard NRP family. I don't want you to decide you're only going to listen to NRP meetings. No, I want you to open up. I want you to listen to both sides. When I learned one of the things I learned when I was studying communications is that we need to read across the media. You don't just read one newspaper, what one newspaper is saying about an issue. Read across the media because there are multiple sides to a story. I want us to get to that level of thinking, that level of understanding, and that level of responsibility, because we have a responsibility to ourselves and to those who are coming behind us to ensure that we make the right decisions. We have to ensure that we make the right decisions. And so I am appealing to everyone, near and far, persons who are listening now and persons who would have missed this show but would catch it on the rebroadcast, to just be a little bit more open this time around. Do not just simply look at what the government will give you now and say, man, the government care for me because they give me $2,000. Understand that that is $400 a year according to Rice's calculation, $33 a month, and $1 and cents. We cannot continue to operate like this. Look at both sides and give us a fair chance. Put us both at zero, or even if you're 3 or 4 other candidates, put us all at zero and listen to each and every one of us. Don't be afraid also to go out to the political meetings. Don't be afraid to engage the persons who are vying for office. You have that right. Don't let anybody scare you. Don't let anybody have that control over you where they make you feel that if you don't vote for them, that this is going to happen, or you're going to suffer, or your family is not going to eat. We need to get away from that. You, all of us, we elect the members of parliament. We are the ones who choose who the government is. So we have that say, we have more power than we realize. It is time for us to grab hold of that power and demand that better be done in the island of Nevis. And I think that the Nevis Reformation Party is best suited at this particular point in time to take Nevis to another level.
Perfect.
So I want to thank you guys for having me, and I hope to be back some other time, and I hope that the invitation also can be extended to other members of my party, and you stay as enthused and as interested as you are when those launches take place in the coming weeks.
Well, yeah, for sure. We will be reaching out. I'm sure Reese is working, and we definitely will have you back closer to the election. Maybe before that as well. Everybody is welcome, and we would love to have you back. Reese.
Yes.
Reese,
Yes, and recuerdo el nombre. That's all I'll say to the Spanish speakers. Recuerdo el nombre. Remember the name, Jaedee Caines.
Okay.
Just remember the name.
Remember the name.
Yes.
Remember the name. Hey, Jaedee, I definitely want to tell you thank you. I reached out to you some months ago, and we finally got it done. You know, you kept your word, and you told me exactly what you were going to do, and we worked it out and we got it done. So we definitely want to tell you thank you for being here with us. Like Aaron said, we will be having you back as it gets closer to the election time. We definitely will have you back. Siobhan says you're a product of Charleston Primary.
All the way.
I know what I mean.
Longest reigning champions of the longest reigning Inter-Premier champions in the history of Nevis. How many years now? 2 years now on the straight?
I was saying that bias, but definitely, man, it was an amazing show. You know, it was great having you here. It was great hearing your thoughts and the way how you were able to deliver your thoughts, not just having your thoughts, but actually, we want to say thank you to everyone that has been here that viewed it with us. We want to say thank you as well, guys. While y'all still here, go like, follow, and subscribe to the Facebook page. You know, smash that like button, smash that follow button. You know, the more people we get, the farther the message reach.
Yes, sir.
You know, so to everyone that viewed it with us, we say thank you. You guys been here. Thank you very much, Jaedee. Thank you very much. Yeah, like hats off.
Thank you.
Hats off. Definitely hats off.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Definitely.
And everyone, please join us again tomorrow night for The Topics. The Topics is more of a grown-up show, rated TVMA. That one is delivered by Alan Powell and China Wallin, and the topics are, you know, always hot and spicy, and
Topics, boy.
the topics. And there's a lot of topics. There's some severance
A lot of
topics, some different topics to come up tomorrow night. But Jaedee, I wish you all the best in your endeavor. You are built for success, so just walk the path. You know,
Thank you.
big up yourself. It's been real, and we're out.
Hey, blessings, everyone.
Real talk, real talk, real talk.